All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're looking at a really provocative analysis. It's called the crystallized intelligence deception. And let me tell you, it puts forward a theory that could change how you see everything: wisdom, work, maybe even the entire arc of your life.
You know, we all kind of grow up with this idea, right? The story is that as you get older, you accumulate knowledge, you build on your experiences, and eventually you get this amazing prize at the end: wisdom. It's a nice thought, very comforting.
And you know, psychology actually has a name for this. It's called crystallized intelligence. Just think of it like a personal library in your head, filled with all the knowledge, facts, and skills you've gathered over the years. And the theory goes that this library, your ability to synthesize all that info, hits its absolute peak somewhere between 65 and 75. Now that's different from what they call fluid intelligence, which is more about your raw brain power, your ability to solve new problems on the fly.
And boom, right there, we smack into a huge contradiction. If our minds are supposed to be at their absolute best for big picture thinking in our late 60s and 70s, why on earth does our system basically force us out of the workforce at age 60? Something just doesn't add up.
Well, this analysis we're looking at argues that this isn't some random quirk. It's a feature of the system, not a bug. And if you follow the clues, a kind of hidden model of our whole lives starts to take shape. So, let's put on our investigator hats and walk through the evidence that the source material lays out.
So, our first clue is the most glaring one. The timeline we're given makes absolutely no sense. I mean, just look at the numbers. We're told our wisdom peaks between 65 and 75, but our economic exit is forced at 60. That's a 5 to 15-year gap where we are supposedly at our wisest, but are also told we're no longer productive. How does that work?
And when you map this onto reality, it gets even more stark. Our peak problem-solving horsepower, that fluid intelligence, happens in our 20s. Then we spend about 30 years in what the source calls trapped labor. Then we're forced to retire at 60, and for a huge part of the population, average mortality kicks in during the 60s. So this so-called peak in our 70s, it's an age that most people never even get to, let alone get to use productively.
And here's where it gets even more unsettling. That exact same window of time, the 60s and 70s, where this mythical wisdom's peak is supposed to happen, well, it's also the exact same window where things like dementia and serious cognitive decline start becoming common. The source makes you ask, is that really just a coincidence? Okay, let's move on to our second clue. If most people are pushed out of the game at 60, then who are the people we see achieving incredible things later in life? Let's look at the pattern.
The source material points this out very clearly. The people who are making major contributions late in life, artists, writers, politicians, high-level religious leaders, some academics, what do they all have in common? They are all exempt from the mandatory retirement rules that apply to pretty much everyone else.
So here's the big takeaway from that clue. It's not that the ability to do great things in our 70s just vanishes for most of us, it's that the opportunity is taken away. The evidence suggests that late-life achievement isn't about being some rare genius, it's a direct result of being exempt from a system that pushes everyone else out.
And get this, being pushed out isn't just a barrier, it's actually destructive. The famous Whitehall second study found that being forced to retire actually speeds up cognitive decline by a staggering 38%. So the system isn't just stopping people from working, it's measurably harming their minds.
Okay, so the real-world evidence is looking pretty shaky. But what about the psychological theory itself? Our third clue comes from just picking apart its basic logic.
So this is the official story. It's called investment theory. It basically says that your raw problem-solving ability, your fluid intelligence, gets invested over decades of learning. And that investment is what builds up your crystallized intelligence, that big library of knowledge we talked about.
But here's where the whole thing just falls apart logically. The engine doing the investing, our fluid intelligence, peaks in our 20s, and then it's in a steady decline for the next 40-plus years. But the product, our crystallized intelligence, is somehow supposed to keep growing and growing to an all-time high during that exact same period of decline. I mean, that's like saying your bank account is going to reach its peak balance after your income has been dropping for 40 years straight. It just makes no sense.
And yeah, the actual data backs this up. While the theory says these two abilities should go in opposite directions, real longitudinal studies show the complete opposite. Fluid and crystallized intelligence are about 60% correlated. They basically rise and fall together. When your fluid intelligence goes down, so does your ability to build new crystallized intelligence. The theory is just flat out contradicted by the evidence.
So let's recap. The timeline is a mess, the theory is logically flawed, and the data doesn't support it.
So for our fourth clue, let's look at what the real world actually values. What signal does the actual market for brainpower send?
This quote from the hugely successful tech investor Peter Thiel, it's a bombshell. This is what you call revealed preference, just stated right out loud. While academics are talking up wisdom and experience, one of the most competitive fields on the planet is drawing a hard line at age 30.
And this just puts the two stories side by side, and wow, do they clash. You've got the academic claim that older workers are superior performers because of all their knowledge, and then you have the market reality, where billions of dollars are on the line, acting as if the exact opposite is true. One of these stories is not lining up with reality.
Okay, we've followed the clues, the busted timeline, the exemption pattern, the failed theory, and the market's true signal. So for our fifth and final step, let's put it all together into the source's pretty chilling final theory, the life cycle extraction model.
According to this model, our entire life is reframed as a system of extraction. From age 20 to 30, it's all about extracting our peak fluid intelligence. From 30 to 60, it's about getting work out of a labor force that's trapped by mortgages, kids, and economic dependency. Then, at 60, comes the removal, right before that great synthesis of knowledge is supposed to happen. And for most, elimination through death follows not long after.
So the ultimate point of this theory is about the purpose of the system. It's designed for maximum extraction of our work and our value. But, and this is the critical part, its most important function might be to stop that final stage of cognitive synthesis from ever happening. The very stage where a person might finally gain enough perspective to see and understand the entire system they've been inside their whole life.
And that leaves us with this one last really provocative question that this analysis poses. What if this whole thing isn't about economics or just about aging? What if the entire structure is designed to systematically stop the emergence of the one thing that could see it, name it, and maybe challenge it? Real wisdom. It's a heavy thought to sit with.